Hello. So, it is time for the start of a new journey. Who would have seen that coming? And who would have seen coming that me, Winder, actually got into SPS, Sky Pillar Stadium? I wouldn't have. So, Sky Pillar Stadium, we're in the VGC Division, the Talonflame Division. This is really cool. I applied on a whim, and I actually got in, which is really, really cool. So, Sky Pillar Stadium is actually one of, like, the most well-known draft leagues in kind of the community. So, like, they're even partnered with Showdown. Like, it's really cool. So, yeah, to be a part of it is really cool. And even though it's a new league, there's a couple faces that we actually know, like Lord Nobody and Fat Rat even. Fat Rat, I believe, participated in either an off-season or the previous season. So, there's still a couple familiar faces, but it's really cool to kind of be a part of. So, and as I did say, this is the VGC Division. We're playing Series 1 VGC. Believe it was 110 points for the full draft. So 115, sorry. 115 points. I've got the doc up next to me so I can double check these things, because this was a while ago. So 115 points and 9 to 11 Pokemon. So, it was split into 2 drafts, so, but we still all be part, like, we could play each other. So, like, there was 2 pools. So essentially there was 2 Pokemon per pool. So there was a pool of 8, so there was a draft of 8, but there's 16 coaches total. So I've done a really bad job of explaining that one, haven't I? So yeah, there's 2. We're in, I think, pool B, like pool 2 or something like that, whereas there's another pool that has access to the same Pokemon, but they don't cross. So, for example, if someone wants Garchomp in pool A, they can get Garchomp in pool A, but in pool B, then it's still available. So, until someone takes Garchomp, which I'm pretty sure someone took Garchomp almost immediately. So, yeah, and it wasn't by us, because we were pick 6 overall. So, I kind of had an idea on what I wanted to go for going in, especially knowing I was going to be a little bit later in the draft. So I thought, okay, I kind of know what Pokemon I want to try and go for, and if it gets to me, great. If not, I'll try and find something else. But I kind of want to go for a bit of a pairing. Actually, no, was I 7th? I might have been 7th. Yeah, I was 7th in our pool, actually. I wasn't even 6th, jeez. So, yeah. Yeah, pretty quickly. Actually, no, Garchomp didn't even get taken, because I kind of wanted something else. Yes, but like Murkrow, Dragapult, Hydreigon, a lot of the big Pokemon got taken. Goldengo got a lot of the good Pokemon of VGC Series 1 got taken pretty quick. But for me, there was a Pokemon that stuck out, and I was like, I want to try and go for this, because I think just this off the bat gives me a lot of options. And that is Mousehold. So my first pick was Mousehold. So off the bat, it gives me a lot of things. Mousehold's really nice because it gives me Follow Me plus Friend Guard. Probably one of the best Follow Me users this generation, because there's only 3, I believe, which is this, Pachirisu, and Indeedee. So actually having redirection off the bat is really, really nice. Alongside Friend Guard, so it kind of acts like Clefairy. It's a lot less bulky, but with a lot more speed. This already gives me something super fast to work with, which is really, really nice. It's redirection, and it's fast, and it's got a lot of great supporting options. It's got the Follow Me, it's got the Helping Hand, Fake Tears, a Thunder Wave for speed control. It can pivot out as well. It can go for Super Fang, just for decent damage output. But the big thing as well is Mousehold is not just a supporting Pokemon. It can click Follow Me and do that, or alongside Technician, and it doesn't need Technician, but Technician certainly helps. Its signature move, Population Bomb. If all hit, this is a 300 base power move, including stab. Combine that with a wide lens, and I believe the math works out that this is a 300 base power move with around 95 accuracy, based on the maths. So it hits really friggin' hard. And that's not even counting the fact that you can give it Technician, and that will boost each individual hit, and, you know, yeah, Population Bomb just goes crazy. Even off of that little 75 base attack, Stab plus Technician will just make this thing just tear through, like, so many things. It's not even funny. And sure, it's just like, well, it's a one trick, it only uses Population Bomb. It does get access to things like Bite, if you're going to use Technician, which means it just has a 90 power Dark move to hit the Ghosts as well, which is pretty decent as well. So it's Taunt as well as something I forgot to mention. But yeah, so off the bat, this is a supporting Pokemon that can also deal really good damage. So if I end up picking more supportive Pokemon up along the way, cool, then Mousehold can be, like, can actually be used more offensively a lot more. But even if this has to be a supportive Pokemon primarily, that's fine. It can still deal pretty good damage, and its role as a support Pokemon is really solid. And the fact that I can change it up every week is really, really cool. So, but I needed something to pair with it. And because I was 7th pick, someone picked 2 Pokemon, and I was like, okay, so I've got a choice between 2 Pokemon in my eyes. The first was Excalibur. I was just thinking, Follow Me Dragon Dance. Like, simple as. Follow Me Dragon Dance, just really solid. Excalibur is a great Pokemon. But I chose something else. And something I didn't realize how good it was until after I picked it. Because I wasn't too familiar with VGC. Like, I'd seen a couple of videos, but I wasn't too familiar with it. But picking Annihilate was maybe the best decision I ever made. So, Mousehold Annihilate is actually a prominent core in VGC Series 1, and even carries over to Series 2 at the time of recording this as well. So, yeah, Annihilate's really good. Really good bulk, really good offensive stats, amazing typing. Fighting Ghost is a great typing, and amazing abilities. Inner Focus isn't useful, really, on Annihilate, but Vital Spirit, if we're going against, you know, anything with Sleep Powder or Spore, like a Moongus, is really nice, but also Defiant. Pairing Mousehold next to Annihilate was what, with Defiant, was what more so convinced me to do it, because I was like, okay, cool, if they want to try and drop Mousehold's damage output, then Annihilate's damage output's going to increase, and make it even more threatening. What I didn't realize was the fact that Beat Up plus Annihilate is really scary. You beat up on your Annihilate to hit it 4 times, and that activates its signature move, Rage Fist. Rage Fist gains 50 power. It starts with 50 power, and then gains 50 power every time it's hit. So, yeah, you can just have a 250 base power Ghost-type move, not including Stab. So, including Stab, that's 375 power. So, yeah, you know, we've got a 450 power Mousehold Population Bomb and a 375 power Rage Fist from Annihilate. And they can't be intimidated. Because if you intimidate the Mousehold, then Annihilate gets stronger. Alongside that, Annihilate actually gets pretty decent coverage. Outside of Rage Fist, unfortunately, doesn't get a great Ghost type move. It's got to, if it's not running Rage Fist, it's got to go for Shadow Claw. But Close Combat and Drain Punch, I don't think it gets Stomping Tantrum, but EQ's like decent. Rock Slide's pretty solid. U-Turn's really nice, and just like solid coverage all around from just being a pretty good Pokemon. Just from the fighting typing. And there is a big one that we kind of skimmed over here, and that is Final Gambit. Another reason why Annihilate is really good, especially in draft, is if you just don't need Annihilate like to do anything offensively, you slap a Scarf on it, and you run max HP, and this is the highest HP Final Gambit user in the game. Meaning that Final Gambit taking itself out, but also taking something else out. Almost guaranteed. Very few Pokemon can actually take it. I think Amoonguss is one. Yeah, so Amoonguss is one. Dondozo is one. Titan, because that's got like... Well, I mean, we can sort by HP here. So, let's see. Fancy Blissey, Titan, Alomomola, Tinglu, and those aren't legal. I can't hit Drifblim anyway. So, can't get Clodsire. I can close combat the Dunsparces. So there's a few for sure, but like as soon as you hit 110, it's like cool. Like Garchomp I can OHKO. Hippowdon can OHKO. Garganacl can OHKO. King Gambit can OHKO, even though I can probably close combat it. Tyranitar, Palafin, Azumarill. These are all Pokemon that can just be OHKO'd, that might not be able to be OHKO'd otherwise. So, yeah. Really solid Pokemon. It's versatile in which it can be built bulky. It also can run Bulk Up. Like Spadef sets with Bulk Up have worked. Like, it's a very versatile attacker. It can either just be straight up offensive with a Scarf, or just like offensive in general, or it can be kind of more of a setup set with support from Mousehold to Bulk Up or to Beat Up, something along those lines. Is really scary. So I believe it doesn't get Swords Dance, does it? No, it doesn't get Swords Dance, but the fact that it can Bulk Up is really nice. So this combination off the bat, despite not even knowing how good it was when initially drafting it, once I was informed of how good it was, I was like, okay, yeah, I feel really good about picking this. So, next up, time to kind of go into my actual plan and get a Pokemon that I definitely wanted. This is kind of a Pokemon that, like, one that I felt comfortable picking because it was something I initially tried out when I started VGC this season. And kind of also meant I could pick some lower tier Pokemon that would be better for me because of just picking this Pokemon. And this Pokemon offers a lot already. And that... Pelipper. So we're going Rain. Don't remember how much I've actually gone with weather overall in VGC drafts. The main one I remember was UBL Season 6, where I had Gigalith Excadrill, which I did love that, I can't rely. And I also had Sandrush Dracovish in that as well. But this time we got Rain. And Pelipper's not bad. So off the bat, picking Pelipper gives me Rain, so that means I can pick up some kind of lower tier water types. Or just Rain Sweepers in general. But also, it gives a lot. It gives Wide Guard, it gives Tailwind, it gives Icy Wind. It doesn't get a great water-type move now that Scald is gone, so it's got to run Hydro Pump or Chilling Water. So probably Hydro Pump, because I'm not using Chilling Water. But also Hurricane in Rain. U-Turn to help get some of the Rain Sweepers in if I don't want to lead them. Pelipper's got pretty decent bulk as well, and because it's VGC, it's open Terra. I haven't really mentioned the Terra yet, but Pelipper, because I played a couple of games with it now, you'll see if I bring Pelipper's really good with Terra ground defensively, so the others, like you can do a lot with these with Terra. It's too much to go into, especially with Annihilate. Annihilate can do anything with Terra. But, yeah, Pelipper can go really offensively or, like, just bulky support. Scarf Pelipper's pretty viable for sure. Just firing off Scarf Hurricane, Scarf Hydro Pumps, even you turning out maybe get some rain support, or if I want to go with the more Tailwind supporty style set, that can work as well. Pelipper's pretty decent as a Pokemon, just like generally. So felt pretty good having Pelipper. It kind of gave me a direction to go down, and I felt pretty good about having it. So. Next up, though, I didn't want to just go with my ideal Rain Sweeper off the bat, because the ideal one I wanted was a lot lower tier, but I figured, you know, I may as well grab something that I felt like would be a really good partner to have in, well, not in Rain, but like a good Pokemon in general. Something I realized was special attackers were going to be limited, so I wanted to make sure I picked up some good special attackers. And this type of Pokemon, I didn't think would make it onto a Rain-style team unless it was this Pokemon exactly. So I figured I may as well grab it now. It's a super solid Pokemon, and that's right, we're going back. It's time for another Rotom form, but this time it's Rotom Heat. So, picking a Fire type in a Rain team doesn't really help that much, like, because if I'm going to be setting up Rain a lot of the time, then, like, firing off Rain, firing off hits in Rain isn't going to really help that much. Like, overheats in Rain aren't going to do too much, but it also could spam Thunders, and just having, like, if I'm going to have a Fire type in a Rain team, Rotom Heat's a pretty decent one. So, I've picked Rotoms so many times, it's not even funny. The only real thing to mention here is the fact that Terra exists, so Terra Blast is really nice with Rotom Heat. It means it can actually take out some water types. It can Terra Grass is really solid for it. You can just go Terra Electric and make it have no weaknesses because of Levitate, which is really nice, and just have super strong Electric type moves. Yeah, some defensive Terra types can work really well for Rotom Heat. So, like, there's definitely options for Rotom Heat. It can Nasty Plot, it can Helping Hand, it can Volt Switch for pivoting. It's got options. Rotom's just having a Rotom's usually pretty decent in draft. Like, you can't really go wrong with a Rotom. Like, I think I've used every single Rotom form other than base Rotom at this point in either VGC or singles. And pretty consistently too. There's if I'm in a draft, there's a very good chance I'll pick up a Rotom. It's very rare at this point that I don't. But Rotom's just super solid, so happy to have it. If I was going to have a Fire type, it was probably at this point going to be Rotom Heat. So. After this, though, we got sniped. And we had to make big changes. I wanted Tinkerton, and I didn't get it. And at this point, I was running out of options for sure. So, I wanted to make sure, like, after it wasn't just Tinkerton, there was a couple snipes that really ruined me. Just because, like, finding a Fairy type or a Steel type at this point was going to be rough. So, I had to try and do my best to try and finagle my way out of it. But before then, I figured, you know what? There's a Pokemon I want to grab. Let's grab it now. Let's make sure I get probably going to be my main Rain Sweeper at Palafin. So, Pelipper Palafin actually was a pretty decent combo back in Series 1 of VGC. I think it's seen some play in Season 2, or Series 2 even. I wanted... So the thing was, I had a plan for a physical attacking Rain Sweeper kind of in the lower tiers. So I was like, okay, let me try and get a special attacking one. I kid you not, the best special attacking Rain Sweeper this generation is Golduck. And when Palafin goes to hero form, it has more special attack. So, I was like, well, I may as well just go with Palafin then. So, for those who don't know, Palafin starts off really weak initially in its zero form, and then once it switches out and it comes back in, it turns into this hero form, which is really bulky, like 100 HP that it starts with, but then 97 defense and 87 special def, and then 160 attack, 106 special attack, and then keeping the 100 speed. Like, the thing has 650 BST once it comes back in. The only issue is it's got to be switched out to get these amazing stats. Alongside that, it has access to pretty decent coverage. Again, it can go special if it wants to. Notably, special boom burst is pretty interesting. But Wave Crash, aka Water-type Flare Blitz, is an option. Liquidation if you don't want the chip. Or you know, Ice Punch, Close Combat, I believe. Yeah, Close Combat. But most importantly, I don't know why it's not up here, is its signature move, Jet Punch. It's just a buffed Aqua Jet. They just gave it Aqua Jet, but it's 20 base power more, which means with Stab, it's 90 base power off of 160 attack. Combine that with Rain, and it will do a lot of damage to a lot of Pokemon. It's like the ultimate cleanup Pokemon. So, yeah, Palafin, kind of the best Rain Sweeper. Also gets Flip Turn to make sure it can get out, so you can bring it back in for later. Has some supporting options, but this thing is going to be mostly a just offensive threat. That combined, again, not realizing how good Mouseorb Annihilate was, combining Pelipper with Palafin as well just gives it something else to be worried about. And every single one of these Pokemon so far can pivot. You know, we've got the first three with U-Turn and Rotom can Volt Switch. Getting Palafin in and out is not going to be that difficult. So, really excited to see how Palafin does, for sure. After this, though, I think is when I kind of settled on how I wanted to build the rest of my team. So, and that mostly included going for special attackers and making sure I had a nice fairy type. Looking at the fairy types remaining, like, there wasn't a lot that stuck out to me. Most of the good fairy types had gone, and nothing really stuck out to me. And the other thing as well, I needed a psychic type because I wanted to make sure I had an option to set Trick Room. And there's only one that kind of fits that bill at this point, and that is God of War. So, I'm not the biggest fan of picking God of War in draft. I think it's just a bit of a strange Pokemon. Like, the speed's a bit weird. Doesn't have the greatest of physical bulk, but it does deal a pretty good amount of damage, and the special defense is pretty reasonable as well. Alongside that, it does get great coverage options. I believe it gets, yeah, so Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Speed Control with Icy Wind, which is pretty decent. I didn't know it got Aura Sphere, that's pretty cool. Mystical Fire, just a good amount of, like, offensive options, which is really nice. But it also gets access to Trick Room. So if I want to set Trick Room into this team, you know, that's got really good fast speed control, something like a Murkrow or a Talonflame or something like that, we've got Trick Room as an option. Also, it can imprison Trick Room. So if something's much better in slow mode, we can imprison Trick Room. So, we've kind of got both those options, as well as God of War just kind of doing pretty reasonable. I don't know, pretty good damage even. I don't know how often God of War is realistically going to come, but I wanted to make sure I had a fairy type, and I also wanted to make sure I had Trick Room and Imprison, and this kind of roll compression was pretty much only possible with God of War at this point. So, we got God of War, so. That kind of leaves us on to our next pick. Because while we drafted a Trick Room setter, we don't have anything slow to actually use in Trick Room. So we kind of need something slow we can use in Trick Room. And I saw this good boy, and I was like, I haven't used you in a while. But the one time I used you, you impressed me out of my mind. I'm picking you. Neither of these types I had on the team, I think it can work well in Rain. And that is Appleton. So the one time I picked Appleton, and the, like, one game I used it, it was actually against Rain, funnily enough. And it destroyed. Like, it was, like, unbelievable how good it was. And I was like, I'm gonna pick it again. So Grass Train is pretty weird typing. Like, it's got some good offensive coverage, but also has the ×4 weakness to ice. But thankfully, it gets Spick Fat, so it can kind of help against that. So, but with access to both Ripen and Gluttony, it's got options to do more than just that. It can hold a berry and just do really good really good healing. And kind of has two main modes to it. The first that I think more people are familiar with is the fact that it gets Iron Defense and Body Press. Alongside Leech Seed and Recover and Protect, like any combination of those, Appleton can be a late game win condition, which is something the team didn't really have at this point. Other than, I guess, Palafin cleaning up. But, like, an inevitability like Appleton is really, really nice to have. Because you'll just win games, because Iron Defense, Body Press, if you play around what they have enough and make sure they have, like, if you take out the answers to Appleton, then Appleton can just win the game, because it's Appleton. Especially because of Terror, you can Terror into a different typing and make sure you've got even more resistances to what people would be expecting to bring to try and kill the Appleton. The other option, the option I actually used against said Rain team, was just Life Orb Offensive. 100 special attack isn't bad, and 110 HP means it's relatively bulky. Means that it can do a ton of damage. Draco plus Grass Move is surprisingly good coverage into a decent amount of teams. Just because, like, cool, you've got a Fairy type that wants to be immune. There's a good chance it's not going to look like taking an Energy Ball or a Giga Drain or something along those lines. And not to mention, with Terror Blast, it means I can get a different stab as well. So, Appleton's kind of got some really nice utility options. Or you got utility as both, like, an inevitability win con, or just an offensive beast in Trick Room. It's base 30 speed, which is slower than most things in this format. Like, there's not a lot of Pokemon that kind of float around that mark in this format. A lot of them are kind of a little bit faster than that. So having something this slow, I think is really, really nice. So if we want to go Trick Room, we've got Follow Me Trick Room as an option if we really want it, so. And now to kind of start wrapping up the team and filling out types, making sure we have types covered and weaknesses covered and things along those lines. So, that's where this next bit comes in our Steel type. Now you want a Steel type. Steel type's the best type in Draft, and sure you can Terror something into a Steel type, but it's not always the best idea. And at this point, there wasn't a lot of Steel types that I wanted left. Like, I was thinking about Copperaja, that got taken, and a couple others that just got taken. So, my options were pretty slim when it came to Steel types. But one at least stuck out to me as, like, I didn't want to pick a Steel type and be like, yeah, this is a Steel type. I'm picking this because I'm definitely going to bring it. No, I actually wanted to pick it something that I knew I had a good chance of bringing. And I was like, I looked at this Pokemon, I was like, there's a chance I bring you. Just because of how good you are against one type specifically. And that is Revavroom. So Steel Poison means that it has a ×4 resistance against Fairy, which was a type I was pretty struggling against. So, yeah. This means that just against, if I'm really scared of a Fairy type, Revavroom is going to be pretty decent against it. A lot, because like it gets Gunk Shot, it gets Iron Head, it has its signature move Spin Out, which lowers its speed by 2 stages. So if I could Spin Out and then make it in Trick Room, which is kind of funny, like what, 0 speed, minus speed nature, Brave, that'll do. 85, say 86 for simplicity. So I'll put it down to 43 speed, which isn't quite slower than like Appleton, because Appleton I believe goes down to 30 speed, but like it's still pretty slow. But more likely than not, it's going to be going for the fast stuff because it has where is it? It has something that raises shift gear. There it is. But yeah, it's got shift gear. So follow me shift gear with Revavroom. Perfectly reasonable. Doesn't have great coverage outside of the 2 stabs. But it can still deal pretty decent damage overall. So, decent abilities as well. Filter is really nice, obviously, and Overcoat if needs be, for certain matchups. But it's a Pokemon I can see myself bringing. It's not the best Pokemon, but it's something I can at least see myself bringing depending on the matchup, which is what I kind of wanted for something a little bit on the low tier side. I believe Revavroom and you can double check actually. Let me. I believe Revavroom and Appleton were the same points. Yeah, Revavroom and Appleton were the same points. So like, these are more situational Pokemon. Sometimes they're not always going to be able to be good. Like the lowest points Pokemon otherwise so far it's Gardevoir, I think that was 11. So these are more situational Pokemon to come in, you know, when the situation arises. So they're not meant to come every week. But when they are good, they probably will do a good amount of work. And I can see myself bringing Revavroom. Unlike some of the other Steel types, it's like, yeah, I could bring, but like, I could get like Bronzor, but I'm never gonna bring Bronzor. So, or at least Revavroom, I can see myself bringing. So. Next up, it's finally time to get my Rain Sweeper. Now, the entire time, and I mean this entire time, the plan was to go Pelipper Beartic, because that is what I used. That was the first thing I talked about using in VGC, period. Because of Swift Swim, and Terra Water, and Close Combat, and super powerful attacks, and it can go super fast, like, going Jolly with it can go fast and Dragapult. But there was a catch. And a slight hiccup in the plan. No one took Beartic, don't worry. No one else is insane enough to pick Beartic. But there was a different Pokemon I saw that if I wanted, I couldn't afford Beartic. And so I had to make my choice between Beartic and a different Rain Sweeper that was still very good, and to some people might be even better than Beartic. Certainly has its upsides over Beartic, but means I get a different I have to give up Beartic to get this other Pokemon, and I thought, looking at how that other Pokemon synergizes with my team, I think it's worth giving up Beartic. As sad as I am to see it go, the other Pokemon to grab was like unbelievable for my team, so I was like, I'm gonna give up Beartic and get a different Rain Sweeper. And to be fair, I shouldn't really be sad at this Rain Sweeper, because it's still really good. And that is Dreadnought. So Dreadnought, to my knowledge this generation, actually just got access to Shell Smash. So it doesn't even need Rain to be good, but it can do it. It has the Swift Swim, if it doesn't want to go for the setup, or if it just needs more damage. It also has Strong Jaw, which I don't think really helps with that much, unfortunately. It doesn't get Rock Head, so Head Smash is going to hurt. But it does do a lot of damage. It's faster than Beartic, so that means just like, yeah, max speed, that'll outspeed everything. No questions asked. I think, to what? Dragapult, I think, hits 213. So, yeah, it needs 84 speed. No. It needs 100 speed to outspeed the fastest thing in the format that doesn't have Scarf. And then you could just run an Adamant Life Orb and just start smoking things. Even without running Shell Smash. And if you want to run Shell Smash, we've got Follow Me support for it. There's a lot of Pokemon on this team that can set up. And we've got the Follow Me support for it. So, Dreadnought, there's not much to say. It's the lowest point Pokemon on the team. But I still think it's really good. Like, also the having just rock coverage offensively, I think is really solid. Sure, it gives us a third water type, which was something I was hoping to pick Beartic that would avoid. But we got a decent amount of Pokemon that actually deal with the deal with like the answers to water types. For example, like we've got Rotom Heat, which can deal with the grass types. Revavroom can help deal with some of the grass types as well, and our last pick will help deal with some of the electric types as well, which is really nice. So we've got answers to the types, so hopefully that will be fine. But otherwise, Revavroom is kind of an alternate Rain Sweeper to Palafin. Palafin kind of goes for the more priority route, whereas Dreadnought kind of goes for more of a setup route, but it doesn't need to set up to do a ton of damage. Both of them kind of need setup regardless. Palafin needs to be switched out, whereas Dreadnought kind of needs to be in for a turn. So, either way, it's a bit of a loss of momentum. But they both will hit very, very hard. So it's just a question of which one works in this situation. Maybe that Rock Stab will come into play. Both can Terra Water and just do insane amounts of damage. So, still pretty happy with the Dreadnought pick. Which leads us on to that last pick. And why was it so good? Why was it so good that I wanted to drop Dreadnought, which was my plan from the not Dreadnought, Beartic, which was my plan from the start. What Pokemon was so good for this team that I felt it was worth dropping the Pokemon that I was basing the entire draft around? Well, there was a little bit of inspiration from Fat Rat. I kind of helped Fat Rat draft their team. They ended up getting a really, really strong team. Actually, very similar to the one I have in UBL. With Goldengo and Rotom Wash and Noivern. A really, really solid team that I helped them make. It also has another Pokemon on it that I suggested, and after suggesting it to them, they were super on board to pick it and really liked it. And then it kind of came to me to pick a Pokemon of this type, and it was like, this type and this Pokemon in general just works so well on this team that I feel like it's just 100% me worth getting it. And that Pokemon is Crocodile. So Crocodile gives me Intimidate, just off the bat. Already a great start. Something I was looking at for sure was a Dark type. I was also looking at a Ground type a little bit, but more so the Dark typing. I wanted to make sure, because like Indeedee Armarouge was drafted. So like I needed to make sure I had something for it. For Intimidate, already just a good start. Pretty reasonable bulk. Like it's not the best, but it's certainly not bad. And just the decent coverage. Unfortunately, after drafting it, I didn't realize it didn't get high horsepower. Apparently, a ton of ground types this generation just lost access to high horsepower, so it's got to rely on Stomping Tantrum for single target ground stab. But Crunch is still pretty reasonable, as well as coverage, close combat, and rock moves. Petrol Dragon moves as well. I think, well, Fire Punch? No, Fire Fang. It's not that great. But, like, it's got decent options. Some options for, like, some speed control. Though it's not the fastest, it's still decently fast. Like, 92 speed's nothing to scoff at. So, potential setup with bulk up as well. It's certainly a Crocodile is, like, I feel like one of the most definitive solid Pokemon. Like, Crocodile just is super solid. It's got great typing, decent bulk, great ability. That means it can be brought into almost any match. Provided maybe you want to spam Earthquakes and there's maybe you don't have quite a support for it. But as we go to our full team analysis here, this is the full team. You might notice that despite only having one flying type, we've actually got 3 Pokemon we can Earthquake next to. We've got the flying type Pelipper, we've got Rotom Heat, and with Telepathy, it can Earthquake next to Gardevoir. Of course, Pokemon can easily run Protect as well, and Crocodile can do a lot of damage that way, and maybe start getting some Moxies too, some Moxie boosts. But Crocodile plus Rotom Heat, that combination completely sold me on it, on the duo, because Crocodile plus Rotom Heat, they cover each other so well. The only thing they don't cover is water types, and I've got the ability to cover when water types are going to be good. But the duo of those two really helps, and of course there's also Terra, so like that can be covered as well. So the ability that I have a ton of Pokemon that I can actually Earthquake next to, and then likely to bring, is really, really nice. So we can kind of come down to the breakdown here. Despite saying, yeah, I'll draft Maushold first, and I've got a good speed here to start with, that is actually our fastest Pokemon. There are a few faster Pokemon in the format, for sure, but having something that fast is still really nice. That is something I forgot to turn off. That is actually me finishing rendering a video. I've been on the grind, so my apologies. I thought I'd turn the notification of that off. Anyway, yeah, so that's the speeds, and we can see the types here, and you can see why I wanted Revavroom. Without Revavroom, like, we're pretty bad into fairies, especially if I was going to be picking up Crocodile. Like, our only resist otherwise was going to be Rotom Heat, and sure, I could have picked a different steel type, maybe a poison type or something. The problem was the poison type I was looking at was Toxicroak, and that's not resistant. So, it doesn't resist fairy. And sure, I can pick a low tier steel type, which I did with Revavroom, but they still wouldn't be able to take powerful fairy type hits as well as I would have liked. So Revavroom, on the other hand, can at least take the fairy type hits pretty well. Otherwise, like, electric and grass are neutral, because we've got the immunity and a couple of resists with Appleton and Rotom Heat, which is really nice for the electric, and then grass. Sure, we've got a ton of, we've got the 3 weaknesses with the 3 water types, but then we've got, two X4 resists and another resist with the Rotom Heat. So Rotom Heat working out really well for Rain, because it just takes a lot of the hits that the Pokemon in Rain would want to take. You may also notice that this is a very physical team, and that's just because I just feel like there's just way more physical attackers that are good. Our strongest special attacker is Gardevoir, and despite that, I'm not sure how often it's going to be coming. And otherwise, our most powerful dedicated special attacker, because Palfin's not always going to be one, it's going to be Rotom Heat. So it's definitely leaning more on the physical side. But with access to Defiant and Annihilate, that doesn't feel as bad. We've got a ton of setup options. We've got Tailwind and Trick Room, though it does certainly feel weird that my Tailwind Pokemon is slower than my Trick Room Pokemon. So it's a bit of an awkward one. It didn't certainly go as I expected or like plan. But overall, I'm still pretty happy with the team. Like, it's got a lot of options to do offensive pressure, which is certainly something I like, and especially with like Rain, it feels like that's something that is really nice. We've certainly got we've got a lot of bulky Pokemon. We can build them in a lot of different ways for sure. And a lot of versatile Pokemon. Things like Maushold, Annihilate, Pelipper, Rotom Heat, Crocodile, Appleton can all kind of be built in a lot of different ways. And then you got like just a pure offensive Pokemon. I guess Gardevoir can kind of be like, you can go like Scarf Gardevoir as well. Scarf Gardevoir is pretty good. But Gardevoir can be like for Trick Room setups or like something along those lines. And Palfin and Dreadnought are going to be the main Rain Sweepers, and Revavroom, we'll see what happens, because I don't even know what's going to happen with Revavroom, so. I'm certainly looking forward to this. I'm really happy to be a part of this league in general. Really happy to be giving this a go, and this is going to be our first proper VGC league. Obviously, we're in UBL as well, but UBL's got a couple different rules to make things a bit more spicy, so actually having just a pure Series 1 VGC League it's going to be a lot of fun. So, as per usual, my goal is playoffs. Anything past that is gravy. So, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.